Good morning.
Hello. How are you?
Salutations.
Welcome. Not all of you are here though, so we will.
Big shout out to E.B. White in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Some pig.
Oh yeah.
Salutations.
Okay. And not all of you are here, so we're just gonna delay for a little bit because it doesn't start until you get here. Come on.
Thank you for telling us that you can hear. And also, it's LGBTQ and STEM Day. That is actually tomorrow, so we're getting you primed for it.
Yes.
You can check out the link.
Yes.
But celebrate it today too.
Because celebrate it every day.
Yeah.
Woohoo! If you're here and you're in STEM, celebrate.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Super important to use these days to highlight these things and then just not forget that it's not just a once a year thing to celebrate.
That's right.
So wonderful. For those of you who are wondering what these smears on our lapels are, these smears.
Mine is spaghetti.
No, let me show you. It's lovely, I think. We were sent these by a fantastic person who is no longer at the University of Guelph.
Because she has a job. They have a job.
For real. But anyway, when Dr. Robinson was here, these were made and distributed. And I don't know if there still are any available, but this is the Pride Griffin. Which is experiencing some there. Is that better? Okay. See, look, all the pride colors. Yay. Okay. Anyway,
I cannot believe that in any of my correspondence in person or on email, I never started it with boop boop kachoo.
This is like a private joke from the chat, right?
Boop boop kachoo, Dr. Robinson.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus loves you more than you will know.
Okay, there we go.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. God bless you, please, Dr. Robinson.
Tell me how old you are without telling me how old you are.
I'm very old.
Very old. Okay, I think...
You know what? I've got a lot of Voltaren in my system. I'm all greased up and ready to go.
Here we go.
In the cupboards behind the cupcakes. A+.
Oh, so good.
That is our children's favorite lines of that song as I play it for them.
I want to know where the cupcakes are.
Yep. Sing us the cupcake song.
Okay, I have a feeling that you're all here, whoever's coming. Oh, no.
Nope, Steve just got here.
Hi, Steve.
Steve! What was that? Steve! Alan!
Okay. Whew.
And that's it. So
done?
We'll hang around.
Okay, so while we're waiting, just a few more. Because I know that there's usually a critical mass of people that actually come to class, which is delightful. And oh my goodness, thank you. Okay. Grades will be released very, very shortly, probably at the end of class. We need to ask you for an extension on Seminar 6, is it Seminar 6? The seminar grade that you are waiting for. There has been a death in the family of one of the team, and so we need a little bit more time, just a matter of a day or two, and so we'll release those as soon as possible. What else? We are kind of barreling towards the end. We're hoping for finishing at class 22. I have to take a look at the schedule.
No, let's do a 23. Let's just do a 23. Yeah. We could talk about stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
I could make you 10 slides that you must talk about. And you could make me 10 slides that I must talk about.
Okay. Or we could talk about the deep, dark secrets that happen when in the field.
Oh, don't eat the rice and beans you made 2 days before when you don't have a fridge.
Okay.
Because it comes out really quickly.
Okay. Maybe we'll do that. Okay. I think most of you are here now. No! You're still coming in. Come in. Enjoy. Get comfortable. We're gonna start really soon. I did just cut out half the slides for today, so I'm not feeling like a super...
That's all right, because you added a third again as many. So
I
think
did.
we're only, what are the fractions there?
I don't know.
If you have n and you've added like 1/2 of n, and then you cut out 1/3 of n total, I think we end up with 2 slides. And this is one of them.
This is one of them. Okay. Shall we get started?
Yeah.
People are still coming in. But it's being recorded. But
Can you hear us?
hello? Is this on? Okay.
Hello, Cleveland!
Okay, ready?
All right.
Beautiful butterfly. The butterfly is complete, which means it is time to move on.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Mrs. Robinson.
Okay.
Jesus loves you more.
Ready? Here we go. Brianna, come on in. Here we go. We're gonna clear.
Gracias.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we were talking about ectotherms quite a lot. Now we're going to talk about endotherms. Endotherms kind of complicate the world, and we want you to think like big picture about the implications of being an endotherm and an ectotherm and what's going to happen in the context of change, right? So the idea, of course, is that all of these things are perfectly successful because they're here, but the implications and the consequences of change are quite different. And so we can make sort of predictions based on their physiology or their sort of overall physiological categories, right? Which is super cool. So
because, of course, in those big categories, there's a lot of variation. And some of that variation, as Dr. Jacob said, it's here. It's successful. We're not talking about, well, it's not successful. It's here. We observe it. It is successful.
Yeah.
But of course, we're changing the field. We're changing the board with anthropogenically forced climate crisis that we are going to treat all of our species that we share the planet with over the next X generations. And so understanding that variation in these 2 big categories is going to go a long way towards helping us understand how that's going to, who it's going to affect, whom it's going to affect, where, and how.
Yay.
And that's kind of the context. Yeah, so no bears, I guess. Well,
But
there will
here's
be
a
bears.
bear.
But will they be polar bears?
Okay. So we just want to kind of like massage your brain and get you in the groove. So please just follow the stamping instructions so that we can make this this a little bit like less chaotic. But also we want your brain to go through the process, right? We don't want you to just to click where everyone else is clicking. Okay. So get a stamp ready. And when I say this number, the 3rd number, that's when I want you to stamp.
So we'll stamp after 2?
We'll start on the first row. Which one of these has the higher surface area to volume ratio on 1, 2, 3?
Oh, I love it.
Good.
I love everybody has been...
That's great. No, it's good. Yeah, it's fine. Just, this is so important feedback, so thank you. Okay. Which one loses heat faster on 1, 2, 3? Amazing. Yeah. Which one has the higher metabolic rate per kilogram on 1, 2, 3? Excellent. Okay.
Which one tastes better?
So there are actually right and wrong answers in this. So let me just very quickly indicate what the correct... I feel so uncomfortable. It's me. It's like totally on me when I say...
It is entirely.
Let me show you the right answer. Because like, you know, who is this like person just saying it is the way that it is? But
You're the professor.
I know,
and
but
you
like...
have a degree in biology
Okay.
that pertains to all of this.
Okay, let me tell you what the correct answer is. But what I want to highlight is that it is on us to make sure you understand it. So don't worry.
You have 4 degrees
I do. Okay.
pertaining to this.
Okay. So here we go. Higher surface area to volume ratio is going to be the Arctic hare. Okay.
Now, can I throw in something there?
Yeah.
In terms of why I was part of the reason why I was glad to see this.
Yeah.
Is this your answer, the kind of the bimodality there, might have to do with how you were taught and how the ratio was arranged.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Amazing. So,
Because
yeah,
it's a ratio. And so if you just flip your numerator and denominator, you might think, oh.
the opposite.
Yeah.
volume to surface area
And
ratio.
the next one makes me
Okay.
think
Yeah.
that you understood it.
You understand the concept. So that's all that really truly matters. Okay, so loses heat faster, Arctic hare. Higher metabolic rate per kilogram, also Arctic hare.
And I think if you think about the per kilogram.
Per kilo. Okay, so let's kind of go through this, but the higher surface area to volume ratio. So the surface area is basically your skin, like the whole area of your skin, right? The two-dimensionality of it. Your volume is your three-dimensionality of your body, okay? And there are some delightful ways of thinking about that. I love this stuff, especially when we think about it in terms of how big could a bird be?
Or why you never
There is a limit to how big a bird can be.
Why you never have to be scared of giant ants. There's been a
Right.
lot of good B-movie horror built about giant ants, but you never ever have to be
No.
scared of them because they
can't
couldn't
exist.
breathe and they'd collapse.
That's right. So all of the arthropods can there's a limit to how big they can be because of this ratio. There's a limit to how big a bird can be because of this ratio. And that's because wings scale in 2 dimensions while bodies scale in 3 dimensions. And so the load that they can carry, there's a limit to it. And
Yep.
all of this stuff plays into the surface area to volume ratio. And it plays into it when we're talking about heat loss. And in endotherms, it's really important when we're talking about heat production.
And somebody's couple of things in the chat that there's observations about birds and wings, and
Yep.
then for those of you who are drawn in by the simple language of mathematics, just the idea that one of them's rising to squared and one of them's rising to cubed. And
That's
so,
right.
of course, the one's going to outstrip the other super
Super
fast.
fast. Okay, so what do we mean when we talk about a polar bear versus a hare? So I want you to imagine an Arctic hare as a tiny home. And I want you to imagine a polar bear as like a big ass mansion. Okay? And I want you to think about the heating bills associated with these things and how much it's going to cost, not necessarily total, but per room or per square foot or cubed foot to keep those places warm. The same thing applies to the Arctic hare and the polar bear. So a mansion, like a really big house, it's going to cost a lot of dollars to heat it up, but it isn't going to lose heat nearly as quickly at its surface, like at the walls, the exterior walls, as a tiny home would. So per square foot, the efficiency is greater in the larger home. Now, I'm not advocating this for fighting the climate crisis. Definitely tiny home it up. But per square foot, the actual sort of economy of keeping it warm is going to be more efficient in the larger house. And it is going to cost you more. You're going to need more energy. A polar bear is going to need more calories, right? But when we control it per kilogram of tissue, right, the metabolic rate, for example, or losing, the amount of heat per volume, these things are more costly for the Arctic hare than they are for the polar bear. And it's a big sort of ecological pattern. Remember, we talked about population size increasing. We talked about biodiversity decreasing as we go towards the poles. There's a physiological pattern, too, that suggests that in many respects, bodies get bigger as we go towards colder and colder environments. And now, both the Arctic hare and the polar bear are in the Arctic, but the Arctic hare is a very large hare. So there are some taxonomic constraints to those things as well.
But that's generally, if you want to think about laws and rules, you can go into the biophysical or biogeographical literature and look up Bergmann's rule.
Yeah.
And that's basically as you go towards the poles or up in elevation, that you tend to be larger.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And interestingly, it's a rule that Bergmann formulated thinking about endotherms, thinking about vertebrates.
But not ectotherms.
But it seems to hold for
Does it?
ectotherms. Yes, it does.
Ha! Okay. So, please feel free to use your text tool.
Except when it doesn't.
Except for when it does. I was like, what about? Okay. So please feel free to use your text tool on the slide or to pop some ideas in the chat. What do endotherms do in the cold? What are some of the things that you know about? There we go. Tiffany getting it started. Well done. Good. Excellent. Pauline, nice.
Yeah, migrate.
Thank you. Hide. Yes. Really good. Curl up into balls. Very good. Get chonky.
Eat more.
Huddle together. Blubber. Nice. Yes.
Hide from it.
Very good. I love this. Winter coat.
Vessel constriction. Get a thicker
fat.
coat. Breathe out.
Nice.
Their butts. Steal the fur of other animals.
Amazing.
Yep.
Lily's totally into the hug the homies. Okay. Thanks, Parker. Increased metabolic rate. Lower temperature. Very good.
Yeah, you're right, Brianna.
Verena. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's delightful. Okay. Well done. Yes.
Yeah, so there's some turtle examples, and remember, so yes, but of course we're talking about endotherms today.
Endo.
And unless your turtle is a mutant ninja turtle, which I always presumed were endotherms, but the most of the turtles I'm familiar with are ectotherms.
Okay. Amazing. Well done. Thank you. Okay. Super. So here are kind of like, so you gave specific adaptations, which are amazing and perfect. Here are like the higher level categories of strategies. Okay. So you can find someplace warmer. You can try to generate more heat. You can allow certain parts of your body to cool, or you can allow the entire body to cool. Those are kind of the options. And your examples and your things fit into these categories, right? And within each of these sort of high-level strategies, there are multiple ways of doing that, right? Find someplace warmer, generate more heat. You can generate more heat behaviorally. You can do it physiologically. You can do it in all sorts of those ways, right? So within those, all of everything that you said fits perfectly. There is a category for what you've contributed.
Yeah, if you wanted kind of an early level studying kind of an activity, you could try and put them.
Yeah.
Take, when you get that screen grab in the PDF, align them into these categories.
Yeah, super. Okay. So to generate more heat, there are a few ways that you can do that. And again, it totally depends on the resources that your organism's history has had access to and all of those things, right? So evolutionary context, ecological context matter in determining which organisms are going to be able to do any one or any of all of these things. You can shiver, so shivering was there. Muscle activity, so you can sort of engage in endurance exercise. You can shiver. You can have non-shivering thermogenesis, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that one. Or you can digest things. Digestion increases your body temperature as well. So just to be able to sort of show that there are multiple ways physiologically of increasing your body temperature.
This is good. We could phrase a question on the last topic test about the Mexican and the Canadian men's football teams playing in Edmonton last night outdoors in -14 to be like, so which of these things?
Yeah. Okay. To dive into non-shivering thermogenesis, I just want to like allow your brains to appreciate the sort of cellular level of this, because I think it's quite cool that there are, one of the wonderful things about biology for me anyway, when we're thinking about physiology, is just kind of how simple it is with respect to form and function, right? And it happens at the cellular level, and of course it's no surprise, but it's just kind of cool to like dive into it just a little bit. So fat is a thing, and it's really an important molecule for biology. Like, to me, it is, and I have a PhD. Well, I didn't giggle about your PhD in frogs.
I'm giggling.
I have a PhD
You
in
just said
fat.
fat is a thing, so I'm thinking about Michael Ilcera in Scott or hell.
Senior
I'm
moment.
really.
Okay, so
bread
I have a PhD in fat.
Bread makes you fat.
Bread makes you fat.
Scott
Okay.
Pilgrim rules the world.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I did a PhD in ecological fat. So I think that fat is kind of like the currency of biological systems, right? So you store it just like you would money in a bank account, and you spend it in order to be able to do things like survive and thrive and reproduce. And so to me, it's as close to currency as we get. And it comes in all sorts of different denominations, right? So different types of fat can be used for different things. They have different structures. And it's just, to me, it's fascinating. But one of the things then that we can do is we can look at fat cells around an individual's body, and there are different types of fat cells, and the two big types that we want you to focus on are white fat cells and brown fat cells. So white fat cells are sort of storage molecules for energy producing fat that you're going to keep in your cells, and then when you engage in low endurance or sustained high endurance exercise, you're going to mobilize that fat. You're going to bring it out of those cells, transport it to your muscles, and burn it in your cells, in your muscle cells. And actually, just like fun fact, it takes about 20 minutes of exercise in order to start kicking in that mechanism. So the first 20 minutes of exercise, you're burning like sugar. And so what you want to do is you want to sustain it if you want to kind of turn over your fat stores. And it's a really good idea to do that, just to kind of turn them over, not deplete them, because fat's important, but turn them over is a really great thing to do for from a health perspective. So you want to exercise for more than 20 minutes so that you can start mobilizing that fat and burning the stored fat. So that's the white fat cell. The brown fat cell is a kind of different cell, like a different animal. So it looks like what we've got here on the right. And it's called brown fat because the cell itself is rather dark. And it's dark because it has way more mitochondria in the cell than a white fat cell does.
Is the mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell? I think I was the first person to say that.
No. It's like the only thing from... Why do people remember this? It's the only thing from biology that they remember.
Oh, because it's a great analogy. They hook on to thinking, oh, look, there's a powerhouse.
I want to...
That's just like the mitochondria that I saw earlier today in class.
If I was going to open up a pub or a restaurant, I think I would call it the powerhouse. Because, I don't know what a powerhouse is. But, for some reason, it resonates with everyone.
You know what I would do if I was a realtor? And I was on buses, I'd be like, Smith, the powerhouse of the cell.
Okay, mitochondria. There's a lot of them in brown fat. The reason why...
that just came to me today, and fuck, it needs, gosh, it needs to get out there.
Okay.
That was a flounder moment.
So, brown fat, lots of mitochondria. Smith is selling houses. And the reason is super simple, because the fat sort of globules in the brown fat are distributed throughout the cell. They're super in contact with the mitochondria. So the surface to volume ratio of the fat globules in the brown fat is higher than it is in the white fat in order to be able to mobilize it faster, quicker, right next to the mitochondria. The mitochondria are going to be burning this fat, and boom, that cell is going to get hot. And that's what brown fat is for.
It's
for
getting hot in here.
Heat. The white cells don't create heat. They store energy, right? So they're like your like wood pile behind the house, and the brown fat cells are like your oven, like you're just putting them in there and it's burning up. Okay, that's what you're doing.
One of the things I think to take away from that great example with the wood pile and the burning oven, which is really hip, that was well done. It's just like you're chopping wood, right? To power up your 3G connection. I think that's good. So, is that scale matters at multiple scales? So we've talked about surface area to volume with regard to a very large bear and a very small rabbit. But we also just brought it down to the cellular level, to the ratio of the mitochondria to the smaller globules of white fat. So surface area to volume matters. Scales, it's biological importance scales. It's always important.
Okay.
Physics. Who knew? It still matters.
Yes. Okay. Good. I hope that you're able to make sense from that last couple. It's been a long semester. We're kind of losing it.
We're not nearly as linear thinkers that we were back in back in September. Remember September? No. Not at all.
Okay, so what does that look like?
That poor child looks really in distress. I do not like this image.
No, nor do I. Okay, so scale, size, body size matters in so many ways, including in our lifetime. So small things, right?
Like infants. Write this down. Infants. Small.
Small. Like the Arctic hare have more brown fat than big things, like the polar bear. But young things that are smaller, like infants, have more brown fat than older things, which are larger, like adults. So this really does speak to the function, right? Because an infant or a baby has a higher surface area to volume ratio than an adult does, and therefore needs to be able to produce more of its own body heat. Just like in your tiny home, you're going to have your heat source going for, the whole time, because you're losing heat. You need to be able to generate more heat. Okay. So thank you for making the baby even creepier. Wonderful.
Is this, if you've gone back in time and you find a little villain baby twiddling its mustache, it's like, oh no, moral conundrum.
That's right. Okay. Okay. So I hope you're understanding surface area to volume ratio is like a critical thing on all of these different scales, right? Within your lifetime, within your cells, across taxa. It's a big issue that really does drive physiological adaptations and processes. Okay. Are we good on surface area to volume ratio?
We just linked it to Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Amazing.
I'd have you know. I just observed it be done in the chat.
Awesome.
Like, that's pretty good.
Super. Okay. Super good. Thank you. So, please take photo. Did you take a screenshot?
No, but I will do it later on with my mind.
Oh, okay. We're recording this, so we will take a screenshot of baby.
You just gave away how I do it with my mind.
Okay. Thank you.
It took me, speaking of September, it took me till about October to go realize that I don't actually need to go, oh, wait, I have to grab it. It's like, we're recording it. I'm going to have a recording of it. I can just draw it and then scan it and then mail it to myself.
I'm really glad that we cut out like more than half the slides of this class.
Oh, yeah.
But I think for the first time ever, we really spent more time on surface area to volume ratio, and I hope that it was helpful, because it is a confusing point.
If you liked it, come back to Zoology 2700 next term or next year, because we spend a lot of time with surface area to volume ratios.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah. Okay. So, thinking about some of those strategies for endotherms, and the reason why we're kind of picking this kind of example is because of the scalability and the fact that it changed, like the physiology is similar but changes over, I'm like, the two things right here. So torpor and hibernation. It's kind of the same thing, but it's different, and there are consequences, physiological consequences associated with each one. So torpor is short term, so it's not a chronic thing, it's an acute thing, where the body temperature of the endotherm is decreased during the stressful period, so it's during the cold period, Usually therefore at night, but again, like it could be different depending upon what we're talking about. It's a decreased physiological activity for lower metabolism, and it lasts less than 24 hours for the most part. And if it happens like every night, we call that diurnal torpor. So a lot of things, for example, will depress their physiological metabolism and be a little bit cooler. Their body will be cooler overnight in order to be able to get through the night. Whereas hibernation, thank you, Liv. Yay. Good. Yes. Hummingbirds. Now,
delicious hummingbirds.
which has a really high surface area to volume ratio compared to a condor, right? So hibernation is also a depressed physiological metabolism. Everything kind of slows down, and it happens, or it's sort of, it's over a longer period of time. So days, weeks, months, right? And that's hibernation. And there are immediate consequences associated with being short-term versus long-term. So that's why these are different things. We have obligate and we have facultative hibernators, and we have deep and we have shallow hibernators. And all of that depends. So the obligate facultative, so just to remind you, we've used these words before. Obligate is like they must hibernate or they will die.
They are obliged.
Obligated, that's right. Facultative means that it won't have any consequences to survival if they don't. Okay, so really important to know the difference between those two things. And the other thing that I wanted to say is I forget. So
well, I would like to say
things.
Torpor, which you might think would be like a good Scandinavian death metal name for a band, is actually a good sneaky name for a Scandinavian Wes Anderson style like lyrical folky band because it's sleepy.
It's sleepy.
You think it's going to be but it's like
No, okay. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's funny.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Hummingbirds!
Hummingbirds!
Just like you said.
There.
But what is the thing on the other side of the screen?
A small rodent.
It's a rodent.
Yeah, and it's very cute and cuddly and fuzzy. Okay, so here's kind of what they stack up in terms of, you know, the comparison, right? We don't need to talk at you about that. We don't have to read these to you.
But it's always good to read a table.
I was talking, before I lost my train of thought, I was talking about...
You lost it. That was not my fault.
I was talking about hibernation in shallow versus deep hibernators. And the thing that drives shallow versus deep hibernation is body size. So again, this whole surface to volume ratio thing is important. Body size is really important because of that volume ratio change. So as you get larger and larger, like a bear, it becomes really hard to depress your metabolism super low to go into deep hibernation. You actually can't. And it's not that you can't lower your body temperature, because a dead bear over time will have a low temperature. It's that you can't get enough, and I know, that's horrible. You can't raise your temperature fast enough and survive it. Is the problem.
A dead bear over time is an ectotherm.
Fair enough.
Just assumes the environmental temperature.
Yeah. So yeah, you could lower your temperature. That's not really the limiting factor. It's raising your temperature fast enough without dying is the problem. So because of that volume ratio thing, it's really hard to warm up a larger surface, a larger body than it is a smaller one. So small-bodied endotherms go into deep hibernation, whereas large-body endotherms that hibernate go into a shallower hibernation. The other thing that's really critical between the two, torpor and hibernation, is that because torpor is short-term, there isn't a depletion of oxygen in the body. So they don't have to worry about reoxygenating their bodies before coming out of torpor. So they'll go straight into shivering in order to kind of get the muscles going, right? Get that brown fat moving. And then they burn some fat and they heat up their bodies and everything's fine. if a hibernator is going to be in hibernation for an extended period of time, its body gets depleted of oxygen. So the first thing that has to happen is hyperventilation. So you'll see, if you are lucky enough to see things coming out of hibernation, you'll see them panting in order to be able to ventilate, to oxygenate their bodies. And then things start burning, and then they start warming up their bodies. Okay. Oh.
So regarding warming up bodies, I just posted a video.
Yep.
About how to explode an elephant.
Okay.
It's an animation.
It's an animation. Good.
No elephants
No
were
elephants were
harmed.
exploded. Okay, good.
It's strictly a surface area to volume thing.
Okay, so brown fat obviously plays a role in these processes, right? They kind of get things going. They're the ones that start the chain reaction of warming up first. And then, of course, white fat cells do get mobilized and do get burned, but there's a lag time because they're in storage, right? They're your wood pile outside. Takes you a minute to go and get the wood. Meanwhile, if you've got your if you've got your oven stoked and ready to go, you can just light it and get started. That's what brown fat is, and then the white fat is the store units that then kind of take over after the brown fat is depleted.
So there's 243 of you here in this Zoom classroom. How many of you grew up in a wood-fired house, in a house that heated itself with wood? I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I had a party line, and I had just basically crawled out of the ocean.
Okay.
There's 2 people so far.
There we go.
3 people.
Yay! So you know what it's like to go in Hollywood.
Yeah, so mornings are
Okay.
supposed to be cold
Okay.
because the fire's down.
Right. Good. Okay.
Grandparents? Yep.
Yay.
Now we get to some mammal cuteness.
So here's an example of a really interesting and complex case, kind of torpor and hibernation all mixed up into one, because we're not just going to tell you about like the super like easy ones. We want to show you where things kind of physiologically get messy, right?
Yep. A little thing with the physiological roller coaster.
Yeah. So here we go. Very cute thing.
Yeah, and a good example of dioramas.
Yeah. What do you know about ground squirrels? I don't know a lot. I
Nope.
know that they have complex social structures.
Yeah,
yeah.
they have social media.
and I also know that there are some very cool researchers in Canada who study them because of their complex social structures. They have, from what I know, they have really interesting communication. Like they have like words, and they like say things to each other in really. Anyway, it's delightful.
Adele special.
Yeah. So the Richardson's ground squirrel, we're just using it. And in fact, the one in the diorama is not a Richardson's ground squirrel. It's a 9-striped one or something like this. So ground squirrels generally, but we'll use Richardson ground squirrel as like the species that you can like Google to learn about more, are really quite fascinating creatures. They they live in burrows, so they dig tunnels, and you can see on the top left image, down on the bottom right of the top, or the bottom left of the top left image, you can see one kind of curled up in a little hibernaculum, which is what we call the place that they spend their time hibernating. And then they're all cute and adorable with their little babies. And they are probably the most extreme hibernator that we know about, which is bananas. So let me show you why. So this guy here is holding a Richardson's ground squirrel that is in hibernation. So it is not physiologically aware, right? It is sleeping. It's not sleeping, it's hibernating. So it's like in this like deep depressed metabolic state. And it's like full on just wrapped up in a little ball. Kind of like rock solid. Like they're really extreme in the way that they metabolize.
Yeah,
Or
if you can imagine what that would feel like, you've held animals before. You know what it's like to hold an animal. This does not feel like that. This feels like holding something that's not
dead.
alive.
Yeah.
Because it does not feel alive.
No, it would feel mummified.
And this is why.
And this is why.
Bananas.
Bananas. Okay, so check this out, and like what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to write 2 conclusions from these data right now. So take a look at this, and we want you to write 2 conclusions. And maybe we'll just let you look, and we'll try to stop talking for like a minute.
Should we?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
2 conclusions. You want to share your conclusions? You're like, I'm good at this.
No, it's like, follow me. I'm going to guide you through the axes.
Okay. Just give me a second and then do that, because that would be good.
I'm going to make a rodent face. Oh, that's a great observation from...
Yeah.
And then the flip side of it.
Oh, no.
There's some real angsty, like...
That's good. That's good, Flamingo. Good, good, good.
Yep.
Okay. We'll just give you another few seconds, and then we will walk you through this. But it's nice to try to figure it out on your own. Nice. Yeah.
Okay, so we got some observations popping up in the chat. First thing, let's take a look at the upper left-hand corner where you can't see the x-axes, right? But the labels, but they are shared all the way down. So call attention to the fact of when they start and when they stop. This is not the full year, but we are looking at, say, from midsummer, early summer, all the way going from left to right through the winter until the spring. And so it ends in the spring. And so what we've got is the arching increase of temperature in the summertime, the soil, and then a steady decrease through the winter at 50 centimeters depth. Of course, there's the insulative effect of the soil, and so whatever snow is on top of it. And then let's take a look at we can look at either of the adults for right now. We look at that in this first area here where they're active. What do you see with their body temperature? Well, they're an endotherm. They're a little tiny endotherm, and so their body temperature is quite high, and it's high all the time, and they're just living their life, doing their little, I am a Richardson's ground squirrel. Who was Richardson? I don't care. What was I called before he came along? Squirrel. I was just called Squirrel, ground squirrel. Then you see these periods of inactivity where the temperature drops 10 degrees down to 15. So quite deep, so lower. So if we take a look at, so take this up, end of June, and it drops basically down to whatever the temperature is of the soil. So if you look at the underside of this track for the male, it's tracking exactly what the soil temperature is. So what that shows you is this is a strategy, that underside of that curve, the underbelly of the curve is essentially, that should be intriguing to you right away, because this, it's like, holy moly, or as my grandma used to say, holy teapot. That's an endotherm that is beginning to assume the behavior, the abiotic temperature-based behavior of an ectotherm. It's assuming the temperature of its surroundings. How is that possible? Well, follow me. Then you see a spike, a rapid spike, not just like over time there is a return. It's like boom. It's like wake up and back up to temperature. And then down again. And the up to temperature they get to is always the same. That's not changing. That's the temperature that you need to be an endotherm of about the size of a Richardson ground squirrel. And then the underside that it drops to, that's the temperature that the soil assumes to be wherever your Richardson ground squirrel den is.
Yeah.
And it does that all winter. With longer, you see the period in between each one of these activity spikes is increasing throughout the winter. But they're always jumping up and returning. And then in the spring, boom, a couple of like wake up shivers, short duration, and then activity.
Yeah.
So what's going on in each one of those things?
Why?
Some thoughts. I've been looking away from the chat.
What's with the spikes? What do you think is happening? Yeah.
There's some good thoughts in here. And I'm just answering the very top one, KYU05. That's almost a radio call tag. KYU05 in the morning. Why does it look like they're almost always in torpor and hibernation? Because of the section of graph. Remember, this isn't the full year. So if you were to extend this graph to like March, April, May, that's just like the ground squirrel doing its thing, living an endotherm life.
Yeah, but they do spend a lot of time in hibernation.
That's another thing to notice. Remember, that's latitudinally, that's what you do. You're going to have to deal, if you live at upper latitudes, you deal with the fact that predominantly it's a bad time to be around.
Yeah.
Or if you're a wood frog, you're frozen for most of the year.
Okay, so physiologically, what's going on here? Smith explained it really well, right? These like short periods of like physiological arousal. What's going on? Are they like waking up, shaking off their paws and like going to get a snack? Or are they...
There's some suggestion that they're going to the bathroom. They have tiny bladders. They're
tiny
like, oh,
bladders.
I gotta pee.
Very good. Then that would be the adults would do it more often than the juveniles, right? Let's see. Oh my goodness. It does look that way, doesn't it? Okay. So what's going on here? But first, let's get those conclusion statements down. Okay, so here we go with a poll for what's going on with the ground squirrel.
Are they checking for their shadows?
So I've sent you the poll, which means you probably want to see the actual data, I'm going to assume. Okay, so I'm going to go with the slide back to here that you have the options. Hopefully that works for you.
How long are I can't see the whole question.
What's that? Oh, you can't see the whole question.
Yeah.
Ah! Okay. I'm going to go back now to the question. It's terrible. We have to figure out a way to split the screen.
I suppose I could put it on.
Yeah.
I have the tragically hip in my head.
Yeah, that, yeah?
Yep. I often do, but... Auxilia, I want to ask your question out loud here because I like it. But I'm going to be quiet because I'm encouraged to be quiet while you're answering these questions.
Yeah, that's a good
The
question.
quiet continues now. Do you remember on the 21st night of September? That's all I know.
Okay, just another few seconds.
Oh my.
What is all of that?
That's the meeting in Niagara Falls that I'm at.
Oh.
The meeting that I'm at in San Jose, Costa Rica is many fewer notices.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're going to end it there. So I'm going to end the poll. Well done. The answer is C, and we will have those available for you when we post, so you can go back and you can take a look. Remember, correlation, causation, remember all of those things, because there are sort of misconceptions brought into these to create the wrong answers. So there you go.
Let's ask Auxilia's question
Yeah.
in the chat.
Okay.
That's a great one. Your question was, can you draw a conclusion looking at the data whether the squirrel is a deep hibernator or not? And I think that you can. And I think that's a great kind of thinking. You are thinking about things in the same way that we might think about gathering figures and graphs and data from the literature as we put together topic tests.
Mm-hmm.
We could show you a graph and say, does the graph support the observation that this is a hibernator or just pees a lot?
Okay, so that was a small endotherm. Next time, we're going to get to the larger endotherms. But just to kind of end the story, there have been some studies done on why this like spike returned back to normal body temperature and then back down, like this spiky, because you don't see this in most hibernators, right? This spike is really quite an interesting and unique thing. And so people have been doing research, and one of the explanations which seems to hold is that this spike is not an arousal of the actual individual ground squirrel, but rather a physiological arousal that allows for all sorts of processes related to the immune system to kick in and function. So it's a way of like cleaning out the body that has been accumulating sort of the bad things during hibernation. And so it goes into this very temporary period of arousal, whole bunch of like immune system function kicks in and then cleans out what it needs to do, and then it goes back into this deep hibernation.
So it's a custodial response. And KYU05, I love your response. Oh my God! Immune response, because that's exactly what Pendergrast, Freeman, Zucker, and Nelson thought.
Yeah, really cool stuff. So yay. And we had some homework for you, but we didn't get to like the whole thing that we wanted to today, so that's fine. Enjoy.
We're not going to show them Rick Mercer?
No, because it's now 1 minute after. So
oh, hell's bells. Yeah, you're right.
Take care,
all right.
everyone.
Waving and smiling.